Hello and welcome back. This is our second year setting up our Magidome Greenhouse. We learned a lot last year, mostly in terms of what not to do, but I stand by my original decision. It was better for us to spend a little bit more money and get some greenhouse plastic wide enough to cover the entire dome width-wise, because it made this year's plan so much easier. Now last year what happened was we used staples to put everything down, and that just turned out to be a nightmare. So this year we're using roofing nails, as you can see here, because they have a wider surface area, but we're trying to put a few holes in. So what we did is we cut a little extra of the greenhouse plastic and tucked it underneath the dome. So it's kind of going to be sitting on itself, if that makes sense, helping weigh itself down. And what we're doing is we're starting from the front of the dome, and obviously we got to make the door first to get in. We're using the same zipper adhesives that we used last year. These are good for like renovations and stuff like that. This was a great idea last year. Did it again this year, bought the same ones. They held up really well. And this is what's making our door for us. But essentially what we're doing is we're going to get the door nice and tight, really secure. You saw we stapled it all in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work all of the extra plastic and fold it back and towards the fence, pulling it as much as we can. And obviously, you got to fold in some places, but you can see we're lifting the dome. And what we're doing differently this year is folding inwards, if that makes sense, so we don't catch the wind like we did last year. That's going to help a lot. And with that, we ended up with a lot of extra plastic in the back, which ended up getting duct tape in. But I think this is going to help from an insulation point of view. So definitely going to be an improvement, I think, from last year's. We did also make a rip or two here and there, so we were able to duct tape it in. But we're essentially cinching all of the extra fabric that wasn't able to be folded in to the sides in the back of the dome. And this, if you guys saw last year, we were trying to are we making igloos back here? Snow had built up and stayed back there. So hopefully this will help keep the insulation a little, just that much more secure. Hopefully. Luce, did you help us? You brought your duck? Thanks, little buddy. I know, I was going to show everybody what we did with the dome. He's been trying so hard to go in there. He really wants to, but we told him not yet. So part of those same changes is that extra plastic. This year, instead of having it outside the dome like we did last year, this year it's going to be inside the dome. And we're going to use that to help insulate. We're going to just start insulating straight from the get-go. Last year, we didn't make 2 layers of insulation. We just had that one exterior layer. This year, we're going to use a lot of recycled materials and get our insulation going, hopefully from the beginning. Is it the best insulation premium foam? No, we're using a lot of air pockets and bubbles, but all of this extra plastic that you see, whether it's the stuff from the outside that got folded over to keep it tight on the outside, or what we tucked underneath, is all going towards our insulation for this year, hopefully keeping everything a little bit warmer. Speaking of insulation, what are we using? Well, I am weird and I kept all of the bubble wrap and air pockets and stuff that we used when we moved across the country out here, plus all the stuff that, we get from Amazon and whoever. And so I've rolled up the air pockets or the bubble wrap, put it all in there as tightly as I can, because I was using ChatGPT and said, okay, well, how can we keep this warm? And they said, use any insulation you have on the top first and then work your way down, because obviously heat and warm air rises, so we don't want it to be released unintentionally. So I had bags and bags of random air pockets, bubble wrap, things like that. And not that that's translucent where it'll let light through, but it's going to help, I think, a little bit better than like some of the foam you'll see later on. So we're going to get the ceiling done up first as best we can and move on to the walls. This is what the foam looks like on the sides. I've got a bunch of this foam that we've been getting recently. I also used like the old bags that you get from the grocery store. I mean, we were running out of bubble wrap pretty quickly here, so we're just making it work with what we have, trying to keep recycled materials in here whenever possible. So the foam isn't great on the ceiling because it'll block out light, but on the walls, I think it's going to work out really well. We did have a quick snow break intermission while we were getting things together. Another thing we're doing differently this year is focusing on thermal mass. And that's what we're going to go with, because this year we have a lot more plants to fit in here than we did last year, as you can tell, because we are quite literally stacking them up. It is a little bit of a gymnastic experience to get to the back, but that's okay. Now, I'm sure we'll move things around a little bit, but right now our plan is, as we go through distilled water in the humidifiers, to keep those water jugs, fill them halfway with water, and tuck them into the nooks and crannies in between the containers, on top of the containers, so we can wrap them like we did last year, because I think that helped a lot with the blankets and stuff. And you could see from the ceiling, I mean, we really covered a lot. Not everything, but a lot of the walls and everything are covered up pretty well. It's not a looker from the outside. The insulation, that's such a hodgepodge recycle mess. You know, some areas are covered better than others. Some areas I just straight up don't have enough yet, so I'll keep stuff throughout the season. But what we are going to do differently this year additionally is like add these buckets of extra dirt that I have around the outside, any bags of dirt that we can, just to help keep some of the heat in, or at least escaping too much. And also like areas like this that get a lot of the wind pressure on it. Hopefully this will take off some of the stress on the structure. Once we get more of the water jugs in there around the plants, I'll be using, I got the black that you see here, the netting that was over our maker pipe structure. That's going to go in there. Is it going to hold a lot of heat? Probably not, but the black will have heat. I also have things like this old Christmas matting that I was using for our little display area. I used it for cushioning when we moved and realized that there's cat hair everywhere, so I can't use it for display purposes, but it's polyester. It'll probably hold on to some heat, so we'll layer that into the plants as we get the water jugs in there to help kind of hold some heat for them. But other than that, I mean, I think this year we're just going to have to see if our insulation, our hopefully less holes and punctures on the outside, hold up to the Colorado winter. Every year we're going to do a little bit better. We're going to figure things out one step at a time. So hopefully this year, between the minimal nails on the outside, using roofing nails to help with the wind tension, insulating from the beginning, adding more plants. I mean, we're doing a lot to help try to keep temperatures up this year, help the structure stay more sound, and ultimately have less issues with the wind and snow buildup. So hopefully, you know, in a couple months we'll be able to come in and check on updates. But in the meantime, I'll be monitoring the dome progress in over Bluetooth. I've got a thermometer there, and you can't see it, but there's one off to the side on the brick, so I can compare what it is outside versus one in the dome. Updates to come soon. All right, friends, thanks for watching. I'm Alessandra.